Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. Past and present and future are aspects of what we call linear time. When we're lost in thinking about past and present and future, even in present, we're being largely in a state of fantasy. You can see that clearly about past and future. They can only be fantasy. They can only be conceptual. It's harder to see that with the present. But anytime you are not relating to the living quality of a situation, of your circumstances, to what we call presence, you are still locked in your head and in your ordinary emotions, trying to figure things out in an ordinary way that is divorced from the actual communication with the thing that you're trying to figure out. So in this tradition, we make a distinction between the present and presence. Ideally, we would have done some practice like mantra and meditation and Kriya Yoga, and the result of that practice is that our senses begin to open. Our senses begin to open, they become more acute. We hear with more refinement, we smell with more refinement, we see with more refinement, we experience touch with more refinement. But senses, those are only the gross forms of the senses, because then we have more subtle forms of those senses, which means that we can actually have an experience of an energetic situation, or the energy of a situation, that is just as palpable, just as real to us as the smell of frying bacon is now. We can get to that place, that kind of subtlety, by doing practices that open up our subtle channels and create an experience where we have more subtle senses. And then further on, our senses can open up, including our mind, to such a degree that we are perceiving subtle communications and we are perceiving flows between ourselves and our environment. We feel completely open to whatever circumstance we're in, and we are responding to it just like, which is the best analogy, I think, a swimmer. So when you're swimming, you're having a whole body experience. Let's say you're in natural water, not in a swimming pool, but if you're swimming in a river or in the ocean, you're having a certain kind of experience where your senses have to be very open and you have to be very alert to the feedback that you're getting from your environment. Otherwise, you'll drown or crash or something like that. Well, think of being immersed in a subtle body of water. In fact, consciousness is called the ocean of consciousness. So think of yourself as having your senses be so open and your experience of self being so porous, no longer so convinced that you're this little atom running around, that you actually can experience just this as a full-on experience of presence in the same way that you might experience swimming in a river or an ocean. And then what you are doing, ideally, would be you are relating your awareness to, and your senses, to this presence. And you are moving through life without much concern for past, present, and future. When you're having a conversation with somebody, you're either distracted or you're actually being present with that person. And when you're being present with that person, you're experiencing them and you're responding in an improvisational way. This is what is called by Anandamaya Kaya, the sort of spontaneous improvisational way of living. And the way that this works is that you do practices that open your senses so that you can hear the music. If all you can hear are the loudest instruments in the orchestra, you're not going to be a very good orchestra mate. You're not going to be responding very subtly. But if you open your senses and you can hear all the instruments, you can be right there. If you're playing in an orchestra and you're thinking about what happened when you were a child, or what you want it to happen in your career 3 months from now or 3 years from now, or you're thinking about, wow, I wonder what that person's doing over there, and I don't know like what that person did to me, and da-da-da-da-da-da, and you're being in the present, but you're just being in your conceptual mind and your ordinary emotions, what is going to happen to your playing in that orchestra? It's going to go completely off. Completely off. We think that all the planning that we do and all the analyzing of our past that we do and all the analyzing of our present circumstances that we do and all the emoting that we do over past, present, and future, huge amount of emoting, we think all that is perfectly normal. And we actually think that's what's expected of us. And we think that our ordinary conceptual mind and our ordinary emotions are really good guides to how we should get through life. But when we're getting through life that way, we are out of touch with what's actually happening. And the only thing we're in touch with is some cobbled together psychological self and a bunch of concepts that we picked up along the way, like a big ball of carpet lint. It's scary to people to think of letting go of past, present, and future thinking. And actually, when you do let go of past, present, and future thinking, you enter into a state of more experience of timelessness, of Mahatime, the eternal. And it is scary at first because you're used to chunking time with all your thoughts of past, present, and future. And that's how you control your fear of death. The analogy I like to use is being on a sled on a slippery slope, and you're scared. So you put your feet out in front of your sled and you keep making little indentations in the snow, chunking your way down so that you never really let go and just fly down the hill. That's what you're doing with all your past, present, and future thinking. You're giving yourself the illusion of this long stretch of linear time that you're somehow in control of. When you stop doing that, the sled just goes whoosh. And it's scary at first because you feel like you're losing control of everything when you stop paying attention to past, present, and future. But eventually you realize the sled never stops. And in fact, you're not really going anywhere. And everything is only that in what's called instant presence, that instant, ever eternal presence. And then all fear goes away. So what your job is, and the reason we're doing all the practices that we do, there's only one reason, and that's to open our senses, to refine our senses, so that we can sense presence, living aware presence, within and without. Now, many people in our culture, Western American culture, it's very, very highly psychologized. And so your idea in general of presence, when you kind of begin to noodle around and try to find this thing called presence, is you're going to go inside and you're going to find it inside. It's outside. It's inside. It's upside. It's downside. It's every side. It's what everything is full of. So ultimately, you have to get out of your going inside and doing things only inside. You have to start feeling for this as something you're relating to everywhere. That's in other people. That's in every circumstance. That's in empty space. That's everywhere in your dreams, in your waking state, everywhere. This living awareness, full of vibratory aliveness. Once you recognize that, then you can begin to explore it. But the whole reason we're doing everything, Satsang, meditation, Kriya Yoga, mantra, is so that you can begin to lose the boundaries of the self, that you can begin to experience that porousness of yourself, the openness of yourself, so that you can begin to experience that, so you can get out of your head, get out of the hothouse of the psychological narrative that you have digested and now are embodying. And begin to orient yourself in presence to life as it is unfolding. And then you can really be in the conversation. Then you can really be skillful. Just having better concepts or more refined stories about your emotions or better strategies that's all horizontal. Nothing will ever change. I mean, circumstances will change, but your life will not change if you are always trying to get through life in that way. It'll always just be more of the same, more of the same, more of the same. Different faces, different places, but more of the same. 10 years ago, you were worrying what to do about something, yourself, your job, your house. And 10 years from now, you'll still be thinking about the same thing. What should I do about X, Y, or Z? Making decisions, all in your little hothouse. The decisions are made in collaboration with livingness, in contact with livingness. So that's what it's all for. For those of you that have been around for a while, if you turn your practice into one long struggle with yourself, that isn't really what this is about. It's better to just do an end run around the struggle and try to feel presence in satsang, in your meditation, in your mantra. Try to orient yourself to that and not continually going deep inside. Here. And I think, based on my years teaching, that the whole idea of like going inside and shutting out the outside world, which is part of some traditions in India, developed in a country where you lived with a lot of people, where you worked insane numbers of hours a day, and there was a lot of noise around you. And you didn't have much time to reflect on yourself. And so going inside was a good idea. But here, we're like in the prison of our insides. We're in there all day long, worrying and messing and meddling. We need to get out of that, out of ourselves, and discover what's here before we can fruitfully go back in again. Otherwise, we just get trapped in there. And it all becomes just the spiritual practice just becomes another part of the struggle of you to like fix yourself. You don't know anything about that, right?
No.
Well, good news. You don't have to do that anymore. You've been trained to do it, and it's going to be hard to undo the training, but it's just training.